Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. With the 2025 NFL Draft drawing ever closer, the buzz is becoming impossible to ignore. Every franchise is watching the calendar, counting down the days and weighing the possibilities of reshaping its future with a single pick or a few calculated moves. The draft isn't just a selection process. It's a moment of revelation, a fresh chance to dream, to rebuild, and for some to reload for a deeper playoff push or a long-awaited title run. For the Miami Dolphins, this year's draft holds weight. It's not just about adding talent, it's about taking that next step. After seasons of promise and heartbreak, inconsistency, and flashes of brilliance, this team knows it's on the verge. But on the verge is not enough. Not in the AFC East, and definitely not in an era where windows close faster than ever. The Dolphins want more. They need more. And the 2025 draft may be their best opportunity to get it. The mission is clear. Even if the path isn't, there are several glaring holes that must be filled if this team is to truly contend, starting with the offensive line. Protection has been an issue. Pressure collapses plays, ends drives, and risks the health of the franchise quarterback. Miami can't afford another season defined by inconsistency in the trenches. They know it. Everyone does. And speaking of protection, the secondary could use some of it too. It's not what it once was. And that reality is painful in a division where the air attack has become a brutal test week after week. Miami needs depth, speed, intelligence, and versatility on the back end. The type of players who can change the rhythm of a game with a single read, a perfectly timed break, a decisive tackle in the open field. The backfield, meanwhile, has speed, but does it have sustainability? Injuries and workload distribution have left questions about how much juice is really there, and whether there's enough depth behind the flash. A fresh pair of legs, someone with vision and burst, might be just what the Dolphins need to turn explosive plays into consistent drives. As the draft approaches, whispers have turned into full-blown speculation. Reports are flooding in, and among them is a revealing piece by CBS insider Jonathan Jones, who highlighted the pulse of several organizations as they head into the most pivotal week of their offseason. One of the stories that continues to surface? The Dolphins and their quarterback situation. It's a conversation that won't go away, nor should it. Tua Tagovailoa, at his best, is poised, accurate, and in command of the offense. But there's a persistent cloud hanging over the situation, his durability. Since 2020, when Tua starts, the Dolphins win. Simple as that. 38 wins to 24 losses is no fluke. It's proof that when he's healthy and on the field, this team can compete with anyone, but when he's not, that's when the questions begin to pile up. The numbers tell the story. Without Tua, Miami has managed just 9 wins in 24 tries. Last year alone, they dropped 4 of 6 games in which he didn't start. And for a franchise with the playoff aspirations, those are the kinds of stats that keep decision makers up at night. The contingency plan, as it stands, is Zach Wilson. Once heralded as the second overall pick and the future of the Jets, Wilson now finds himself as Tua's backup. But his career record in 12 wins and 21 losses as a starter doesn't exactly inspire confidence. The upside is there, sure, but the inconsistency, the turnovers, the stalled drives, they've all been part of the story too. Miami knows it can't afford to roll the dice if disaster strikes again. That's why quarterback evaluations have quietly become part of Miami's draft homework. Behind closed doors, the Dolphins have been doing their due diligence. Watching tape, conducting interviews, studying tendencies. Louisville's Tyler Show has drawn interest. He's mobile, experienced, and has the kind of arm that can stretch the field. But he's not alone on their radar. Will Howard, the Ohio State product, brings physical tools and leadership. Quinn Ewers from Texas offers natural talent and a quick release. Jalen Milroe out of Alabama can beat you with his legs, and his arm and his upside remains one of the more intriguing in the entire class. Kyle McCord, formerly of Syracuse, rounds out a group of quarterbacks who may not be headline makers on day one, but could be absolute steals in the middle rounds. And That's exactly where Miami is likely to strike. The Dolphins don't own a first-round pick, but they hold solid draft capital in the heart of the board. 1 third-rounder, 2 fourth-rounders, and 2 in the 5th. It's a cluster of picks that offers flexibility, the chance to add depth across multiple areas, the potential to find value where others see risk, and possibly the opportunity to land a quarterback who might not just serve as a backup, but who could step in and win games if called upon. This is more than just roster building. It's insurance. It's foresight. It's the kind of strategic thinking that separates contenders from pretenders. Every successful franchise knows the value of a dependable quarterback room. And in a league where injuries are a constant threat, that second option might just determine the course of a season. The Dolphins aren't tipping their hand. Chris Greer or Mike McDaniel have been measured quiet, playing the game the way experienced front offices do, showing interest just enough to stay informed without revealing their hand. But the signs are there, the preparation is underway. And when the third round rolls around, don't be surprised if a new quarterback is on the board and Miami makes the call. Of course, the quarterback question is only part of the story. Miami's draft approach is layered. The offensive line could be addressed early. Names like Kingsley Suamataia, Blake Fisher, or Javon Foster might be options depending on how the board falls. Interior linemen like Zach Frazier or Cooper Beebe could provide immediate help in keeping the pocket clean and the ground game moving. The secondary? It needs help too. A rangy safety or a sticky cornerback who can match up with AFC East receivers would be a welcome addition. Miami will be watching closely as players like Kyrie Jackson, Kamari Lassiter, or Jaden Hicks fall down the board. 1 or 2 of them might be within reach come day 3. Running back? Don't rule it out. The Dolphins may love what they have in Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, but those are players with injury histories and speed-dependent games. Adding a bruiser, someone who can churn out tough yards in December or handle a 20-carry load in bad weather, might be the missing piece to a more balanced attack. And so the waiting begins. The war room is nearly set. The scouts have filed their reports. The coaches are weighed in. The board is being built, revised, and fine-tuned. Miami isn't starting over. They're aiming higher, sharper, smarter. The right picks in this draft could be the difference between another good season and a great one, between watching the playoffs from home and playing into February. So when the Dolphins finally go on the clock, expect the unexpected. Expect bold moves. Expect calculated risks. And most of all, expect a franchise that understands the stakes and is ready to meet the moment. Still with us? Then show some love, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments, what's your take on the Fins this week? Something just shook the NFL world to its core. And not just any team. This is coming straight from South Beach, straight from one of the most electrifying duos we've seen in recent years. Tyreek Hill has officially gone on record saying he's done, finished. He will no longer play another snap alongside Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins. And folks, this is not just a headline. This is a bombshell. We're talking about a team that was being hailed as a potential Super Bowl contender just months ago, suddenly thrown into complete chaos. The Dolphins' offense, once a blur of speed, precision, and highlight reel touchdowns, now finds itself fractured, possibly beyond repair. And listen, this isn't just any wide receiver voicing frustration. This is Tyreek Hill we're talking about. The cheetah. One of the fastest, most dangerous weapons in the entire league. When Tyreek speaks, people listen. And what he's saying now is reverberating through locker rooms, front offices, and fan bases across the country. According to sources close to the situation, Hill's decision to draw a hard line in the sand came after months of simmering tension, miscommunications, and a complete breakdown in trust between him and his quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. Now, if you've been watching the Dolphins over the past 2 seasons, this news probably hits like a sucker punch. Because on the field, these two look like magic. Tua dropping dimes, Tyreek turning short slants into 60-yard house calls. They were the engine behind one of the most explosive offenses in football. At their best, they were absolutely unstoppable. Defenses would back off 10 yards before the snap and still get burned. But apparently what we saw on Sundays didn't tell the whole story. Insiders say the problems began late last season when the Dolphins hit that rough patch in December. Remember that 3-game losing streak? Miami was exposed against physical defenses. Tua struggled under pressure, and the timing with his receivers, especially Tyreek, started to falter. Publicly, everyone kept it professional, but behind the scenes, cracks were forming. Hill, a fierce competitor with a burning desire to win, reportedly grew frustrated with Tua's inability to adjust in real time. Sources say he felt the quarterback wasn't preparing at the elite level needed to win a championship. And more than that, he didn't feel heard when he voiced those concerns to the coaching staff. One Dolphins assistant, who asked not to be named, described the relationship between Tua and Tyreek as icy by the end of the season. He said the two barely spoke in meetings. What used to be playful banter turned into awkward silence. On the practice field, Hill started spending more time working individually or with other receivers while Tua stuck with his core routine. It was clear, even then, that something had changed, and then came the offseason. No big sit-downs, no reconciliation. According to reports, Hill tried to push for changes in the offensive structure, believing Tua needed to cede more control to pre-snap reads and allow for more improvisation, something Tyreek excels at. But the coaching staff doubled down on their scheme, trusting in Tua's decision-making and timing-based system. That, we're told, was the final straw for Hill. Fast forward to this past week, and Tyreek Hill finally dropped the bomb. In a sit-down interview with a podcast hosted by former players, Hill said bluntly, "I love the city, I love the fans, but I can't keep doing this with Tua. We're not on the same page, and I don't think we ever will be again." He continued, "At this point in my career, I need to win. I need to be somewhere where I trust the guy under center to make the throw when it matters. That's not what I have right now." That quote alone sent shockwaves across the league. Social media exploded. Analysts scrambled to verify. Was this real? Was this frustration boiling over? Or was this calculated? A message to the front office that it's either him or me. Well, turns out it's very real. And the Dolphins front office is now staring at a crisis of epic proportions. On one hand, they've spent the last few years building around Tua, defending him from critics, giving him weapons, coaches, and time to develop. On the other hand, Tyreek Hill is not just a player you can replace. He changes the geometry of the entire field. Defenses have to game plan around him. He's a once-in-a-generation speedster who demands the ball and delivers. Now Miami faces a fork in the road. Do they stand by their quarterback, hoping he can win over the locker room and continue to grow into the franchise leader they believed he could be? Or do they consider the unthinkable, moving on from Tua, trading him, or even demoting him in order to keep the peace with Hill and salvage their window of contention? There's also the locker room dynamic to consider. Players aren't dumb. They see what's happening, and when a superstar like Hill publicly distances himself from the quarterback, it sends a message. Whether intended or not, it creates factions. Who supports Tua? Who's in Hill's corner? That division can poison a season before it even begins. And let's not forget the broader implications here. We're entering a season where the AFC is more stacked than ever. Mahomes and the Chiefs are still the kings. Burrow is back. The Ravens are loaded. The Jets have Rodgers. The Bills have Allen. You think the Dolphins can afford to walk into that gauntlet with internal drama and a broken offense? Tyreek Hill knows this. He's played in big games. He's won Super Bowls. He knows what it takes. And maybe that's why he's speaking up now, because he feels this team isn't ready to win at that level, and he refuses to waste another season waiting for it to come together. Some might say he's being selfish, but let's be honest. In today's NFL, star players have power. And when they feel their window is closing, they use that power. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't necessarily mean Hill is getting traded. Tomorrow, the Dolphins still control his contract, but the damage is done. Once a player draws a line like this, it's hard to walk it back. Can you really picture Hill and Tua lining up together next season after everything that's been said? Can you imagine them in the same huddle, pretending everything's fine? And let's not ignore the silence from the organization. So far, no official statement from the Dolphins. No tweet, no press conference. Just silence, which speaks volumes. They're clearly scrambling behind the scenes trying to figure out how to contain this wildfire. Some sources believe a trade is already being explored quietly. Others think they'll try to mediate and get both players in a room. But the clock is ticking. The fans are divided. Half of Dolphins Twitter is calling for Hill to be benched or traded, accusing him of being a diva. The other half is done with Tua saying he was never the guy, and Hill just confirmed what they already knew. And in the middle of all this, a team with legitimate playoff aspirations, watching it all slip away before training camp even starts. This might just be the biggest crossroads moment in recent Dolphins history. Bigger than drafting Tua. Bigger than the hiring of Mike McDaniel, because this is about the identity of the team, about leadership, about trust, about whether this core can survive the pressure of expectations. So what happens next? That's the million-dollar question. If you're Miami's front office, do you call Hill's bluff? Do you test the market and see what a superstar wide receiver can fetch in a trade? Or do you pull the emergency brake and shake up the quarterback position instead? Whatever they decide, it needs to happen fast. The longer this drags on, the more toxic it becomes. All eyes are now on Miami. Not just because of the talent on the roster, but because of the drama unfolding behind closed doors. And this, folks, could define the next decade of Dolphins football. Whether they implode or rise from the ashes will depend on what happens in the next few weeks. But one thing's for sure, Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa are done, and the fallout is just beginning. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.